The Oklahoma Sooners have had a very busy transfer portal period. We're going to talk about it all here on the Sooner Spotlight. Sooner Nation, welcome into another episode of Sooner Spotlight, your all-access pass for all things Oklahoma Sooners athletics. We've got a lot to get to, and I've got my good friend over here, Jay Smith from Unfair Sports and Locked On Sooners. Jay, how are we doing, man?
Hey, Josh, man, I'm excited. It's been a good week. A lot of reasons to smile. So, of course, I'm happy to be here now.
Yeah. I mean, one that I haven't been able to talk about yet, but big time comeback win last night. With on the hardwood. I mean, how about Jeremiah Fears? And then, of course, we're going to be talking transfer portal for the Oklahoma Sooners football team. But, I mean, you kind of got to throw a little bit of that in there because it was kind of like all big news, all kind of combining together, and it just felt like a good day yesterday for sure.
Yeah, it did. It was a massive move for the Sooners, not only getting the W on the basketball side, you also started getting some wins in the portal finally, which is what everybody was wondering about. Will that ever happen? And sure enough, we're here.
Yeah.
We're ready to go.
Well, and it seemed like, even the good wins down whenever they took that trip to Hawaii, it felt like that was all just kind of shaken off. Like, yeah, but all those teams aren't doing so good anymore. Now you get to where we are now, win it against Michigan. You can't shake that one off, but especially the way that they won it. But let's jump into the transfer portal because there's been a lot of movement in the transfer portal, and it feels like for the Oklahoma Sooners, as of recent, we've started to get some good news, but there still feels like to be an overwhelming amount of bad news that we got from the transfer portal, quote unquote bad news, depending on how you take it. And I think some people call maybe a guy like you or me, because I feel like you and I are pretty aligned on how we view things. And, they might call us, sunshine pumpers, and like we're throwing out all this sunshine and rainbows for Oklahoma Sooners. But even the losses that we've taken aren't necessarily a bad thing. And, I've heard you and John both talk about it over on Locked On, and then over on Unfair Sports, you and Coop talking about it too. So, I mean, I think you guys are pretty much in line with me where some of this has been kind of good to get rid of some of these guys. And, of course, it hurts to see them go. We wish the best to them. They were Sooners. They dedicated their time to us. But, I mean, overall, looking at the guys that we lost for the Sooners, even though that we had a lot go out, we had, 27 or something like that, 24, 27?
23 so far, 23 scholarship players so far.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of guys that left, but what transfer do you think affects the Sooners the most with their departure from Norman?
I'm gonna be honest. The one that really that hit me the hardest was Desan McCullough. I still have high hopes for him as a linebacker, as an edge, as a player. He was the one I was like, man, I'm really hoping that he stays, that we can find a way to get him going. But at the same time, he had been dealing with so many injuries over the last couple of years. He talked about it. He had to have a couple of knee procedures uh, after last season because of the Texas game where he was getting chopped a lot. And then teams started chopping him because they figured out that's the only way to slow down that giant human being. But he also just didn't have the speed to really do the Isaiah Simmons role. Like you saw Isaiah Simmons he's the cheater role at Clemson. He's like the giant dude that you would see at safety, at linebacker, at edge. You're like, who is this behemoth running around the field? It should be illegal. And he was making all kinds of plays. So McCullough wasn't at that size or at that speed to be able to do that, but he was still, to me, very impactful in getting into the backfield and causing issues. When we had that goal line stance against Texas and at Red River last season, he was huge in that. He got a lot of those stops. And so losing him was probably the one that jumped out to me the most. I was really hoping you would maintain and keep him. Besides that, of course, Nick Anderson hurts.
Mm-hmm.
When you go down the six wide receivers that we lost in the portal, you really only had two of them that actually really played, with Brendan Thompson and JJ Hester. Jaquez Petaway got a little bit of run, but it didn't seem like things were working out well for him. I'm actually curious to where he ends up. But, losing, the guys like Nick and then, Hester, Farouk, losing Brendan Thompson. Yeah, there's a few, losing those guys kind of hurt you, but at the same time, you understand,
Yeah.
there wasn't a bunch of production that was lost at that moment.
Yeah, well, and yeah, you look at what all of them put together, and we'll get to the receivers that we got coming in. You put together all of our receivers plus Bauer Sharp, who was the leading receiver for the Sooners this past season, and they don't even put up the same amount of stats as any of the top 20 receivers in college football this past season. You combine their
Yeah,
stats together. I mean, that's where, yeah, it hurts and it sucks to see those guys leave. But even some of these guys leaving, we kind of have a different recruiting standard for wide receiver now, and you're starting to see that with some of the guys that they've been targeting, and then some of the guys that we're getting in so far, which we only have 2 wide receivers that we've signed so far from the transfer portal, but even some of the recruits that we've been going after and stuff like that you see, some of these guys, they're bigger framed. We're looking for those big framed wide receivers that are able to win those
I noticed
50-50
that.
balls. So, I mean, that's something that, it sucks to lose a guy like Jaleel Farouk, but he's also, a smaller dude when you take him in comparison to some of the guys we've been going after. And I think that's where, we still got, cross the fingers. We still got Jaden Gibson around, big frame dude. And then, we'll go ahead and jump on because we started off with some good news this past week where it started to come in. We started to see some guys sign. The first one was a punter from Kennesaw State, and everyone said, really? This is the first guy? Hey, I would rather start off with the punter than end with the punter. So let's start off
Yeah,
slow and gradually snowball this, and it's snowballed pretty big because we started off with Jacob Ulrich, I think is his name, right?
he's Ulrich. Yeah,
Yeah, and so
just committed too.
what's that?
Yeah. He just committed a couple of days ago. So
Yeah,
you get yourself a nice punter. You got to the problem for Jacob. Kind of feel bad for him coming in because he's got big shoes to fill. I mean, Luke Elzinga,
yeah,
the Elzinger was a beast.
yeah.
And so now you've got to find a way to replace that talent. That dude's a monster. So, Jacob, I'm hoping that you're prepared for all the pressure we're going to put on you to make sure that if we ever have to punt, that you punt it in a beautiful spot. Because Elzinger was a
Yeah, he
beast out there on
was.
the field.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that point. But then also, I feel like it's kind of tough for him coming in because I felt like the reaction to him signing with Oklahoma was almost like kind of disrespectful towards him without intending to be because it was like, really? We're signing a punter, and then on top of that, a punter from Kennesaw State? What are we doing? But for one, I mean, you see what, if you go back and look at his leg back at Kennesaw State, he could flip the field, and hopefully he can do it just as good as Elzinga. But, that if you have a defensive-minded coach and a defensive-led team, last year, that's the reason why we were either close or won the 6 games that we ended up winning was
Yep.
because of Elzinga flipping that field and keeping us in the game because the defense was able to get themselves without their back on the wall and ends up making that a lot better. So that's definitely something that we needed the big leg to get us back into there, and I think that was a good move. But then going forward, we had a couple of offensive linemen. I was teasing with you a little bit on X this morning. Hey, we got 3, right? And then I realized, nope, the guy that I wanted already transferred, already committed anyways. But we have offensive tackle Luke Baklenko and from Stanford, who is a 6'7", 280-pound offensive lineman. And then also an offensive tackle in Derek Simmons from Western Carolina, 29th overall player in the transfer portal as it stands currently, 4th overall offensive lineman. He is 6'6", 325 pounds is what he was listed at on 3. So, I mean, this dude stands big and wide. And so, I mean, both of these guys, that feels like the Bill Bedenbow offensive lineman that we were used to getting back in the good old days when we had the best offensive lineman that's used to winning awards together and all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, just on the offensive line front, how you feeling so far moving into the 2025 season?
Yeah, so I'm not too stressed about it. The young players, to me, Bill Beatonbow had probably his best set of classes the last couple of years when you go in and look from Daniel Akinkumi down to Isaiah Autry, Dan, Eddie Pierre, Louis. We did lose Eugene Brooks to the portal, but it's okay. Still got Josh Sosa though. So you
Mm-hmm.
got another big center there, and then you bring in Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foget, Darius Afalava, Owen Hollenbeck, uh, Sean Sutton, Sean Hutton. I'm sorry. You got a good foundation. That's 8 guys right there that are young, ready to play. And the main 4 that came from the 24 class, they started to get a little bit of experience. You saw Autry didn't get some run out there at tackle, so he's going to be about ready. But then you still got your 23 guys. You still got Logan Howland. You still got Jacob Sexton. You still got Jake Taylor. Those 3, that's your foundational pieces right there at the tackle position. And when they were all healthy, they played good. Both Jakes played really good when they were healthy. Problem was they couldn't stay healthy the entire season, and so uh, you need them to go ahead and get healthy, and I think that you'll be fine there. Heath Ozida is still there, and I love what Heath was putting together this year. You still got Fabici Wewu, and then you bring in Baklinko as well as Derek Simmons. That gives you more of a veteran piece to go with the young guys, and so they'll be there to help push the line. But when you look at the 15 guys, the three deep, which you should always look at your three deep when it comes to offensive linemen, because knock on wood, unfortunately, somebody's going to go down. Still got Troy Everett and Branson Hickman has still got one more year eligibility. So you got those two for one more year with Josh Iasosa right behind them to be able to take over that, or Owen Hollenbeck taking over at center. So we've actually got something that we were hoping for. We've got more veterans, people with snaps, than we have guys that have never played a snap at the collegiate level.
Yeah.
If we had that past season, things would have looked differently because we end up having to rely on a lot of young players that hadn't played. I mean, think about it this way. Troy Everett, he was the starting center going into spring. He gets hurt. So you go hunt down and get Branson Hickman, who comes in. He unfortunately also gets hurt right before the season, but he gets to play a little bit. But a minute that Troy Everett got back on the field, that offensive line looked a heck of a lot better. Looked completely different because Troy Everett is a really good center. So he gets to take over that spot, gets everybody going. We just got to make sure everything around it gets better. And I think that we did with adding those two tackles. And I think that's probably it. If there's an elite player that populates, that picks up the phone and says, hey, I want to come to Oklahoma, we'll probably take that phone call. But for the most part, I think the line is now solid because we've grown, and that's what's important.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the size alone tells you something, and then on top of that, just seeing who was going after these two guys, I feel like both these offensive linemen are they were very much wanted by a lot of big teams. Especially in the Power Four when you start to look at those teams that really matter. And we'll probably talk about it here in just a second, just because we get into the wide receiver corps that we added to. Got 2 wide receivers so far. I think we'd like to add maybe 2 more. Is what I'm hearing. Maybe at least 1 or maybe 2 more. And so far we got Keontez Lewis from Southern Illinois. Started his career off at Wisconsin and moved down, but then now coming back into the D1 college football and starting it off pretty well by going to Oklahoma. At least for him, it's a good move. Overall, though, throughout his career, in all 3 seasons he's played, which I believe his second year didn't hardly play at all, but then this last season had a really good season. Overall, he's averaging close to 16 yards per reception. So it's a dude that, I mean, he's able to get the ball, and when he does, he's able to get it downfield. I'll take that all day. And then you look over at Giovanni Gibson, which I kind of raised this as soon as I saw it, and then I saw Parker Thuney then said the same thing. What are we going to do about the 2 J.A. Gibsons? Like, do you put J-A-V or J-A-Y on one? Like, how's this going to work out now? But you get Giovanni Gibson from Arkansas Pine Bluff. He was a 38th ranked wide receiver portal, according to On3, I believe it was, that I pulled that off of, out of 72 plus, because there's some that aren't quite listed yet. But he's ranked up there in the wide receivers, which is something that isn't really heard of. You're not really mentioned, is that, hey, he's a ranked dude. He was a guy that other teams wanted. And according to On3, he even ranked ahead of Donovan McCulley, who was one that we were hopeful to get, and ranked right up there with Naziah Hunter and Reggie Virgil. So, I mean, with the overall rankings that they're doing, or the ratings, I should say, that they're giving these kids, they're saying that he's, from the scouting perspective, just as good as some of these other guys that we were super excited to get, yet the fan base, at least on social media, seems to be saying, why are we going after these guys that are from FCS schools, or even from these group of 5 schools that we don't care about? And I think that's the wrong mentality, rather than looking at the scouting report. Because if you watch some of the tape on the guys that we picked up, I think it tells you quite a bit.
Yeah, and the one thing that I saw it on X, and I talked to actually Colin Kennedy last night on the show. We talked a little bit through this, and one thing that is very much apparent when it comes to what coaches actually look for, a lot of them believe that if you're able to produce at the lower level, that's more likely to translate up than for a guy that has spent the last 2 to 3 years not producing at the P4 level to be able to all of a sudden start producing. And that's the thing to kind of look at. I understand if it's younger players, Because you're like, okay, they just need a little bit more development. You can make that work out. But if you got some guys that are older and they're in the portal and they ain't played for 3, 4 years, there's probably a reason why. And that usual reason isn't a good thing in most capacity. Now, some situations are different, could be injuries on a regular basis, but that's also something to consider. Perfect example with Oklahoma, with us, we moved a lot of the players that left us in the portal were guys that had spent a lot of time injured in some capacity of their career, right? JJ Hester, for the most part, was hurt the first couple of years he was here when he transferred from Missouri. Finally was able to really break out this past year, and I think he'll do well at Kentucky, but he spent time injured. Brennan Thompson spent some time injured, often on the injured list. Farouk played 2 games and he was hurt. Same thing. Nick Anderson did not play. And as you just continue to go down the list of players, injuries have been factors, and so that happens with a lot of players. So the question is, if they're healthy, what they're going to be able to do. The guys that we're bringing in with the Keontae Lewis as well as Giovanni Gibson is they're bringing in production at a level of football that's above high school. Because all these dudes kill it in high school, but were they able to do it at the next level? And you see translations. Let me give you a perfect example. Twofold. One, Arkansas Pine Bluff. We have experience bringing a wide receiver in to Oklahoma from Arkansas Pine Bluff. A lot of y'all love him as Sooner fans. He's one of your favorite guys. Mark Bradley. He was really good. Now,
Yeah.
war number one, it's a fantastic wide receiver. We enjoyed watching him play, right? He's from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, played at Arkansas Pine Bluff, transferred into Oklahoma. Rest is history. Another one that you could think of. Over at Arkansas, the number one wide receiver in yards in the SEC came from Texas A&M Commerce. Andrew Armstrong. He's lighted up there at Arkansas right now. So this isn't a very uncommon thing. The wide receiver position is probably the one that you can get a dude from FCS and come up here and he could dominate. It's all about is he fast? Can he catch? And can he get off the line? And a lot of these dudes typically can. Some of them, like you said, in some ways, some dudes probably needed to go somewhere to get their grades together, some try to get their life together, and now they're at a point where they're ready to ball. I can guarantee, though, with those two, adding them into this room with the young guys, it's a good mix because think Gibson has 2 years left, but Lewis only has 1.
Yeah.
Which is perfect because it doesn't stifle the development in the room of wide receivers you currently have. You're going to be able to still get Zion Kearney going. You're still going to be able to get Zion Raggins or KJ Daniels, but get all those young guys going. Ivan Carrion's going to be able to get himself going. You're still going to be able to work with those young guys, and then Elijah Thomas as well as Manny Choice comes in. You're not replacing too many guys with players that's going to take every single snap. Those young guys are going to get an opportunity to play, and then when they get to play, and they're a lot more comfortable because the veterans are taking a lot more attention, that's when you're going to see them be able to pop and be ready for the next season.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of size too, you got Giovanni Gibson coming in at 6'2", 205 pounds. I mean, he may not be the tallest receiver out there. Where we were going after some guys that are like 6'4". I think Jaden Gibson's like 6'5", isn't he? So we still got some height though. 6'2" is a good height for receiver, but 205, I like that. I like that a lot, and that's something that I love to see from him. He's one of those guys too. If you go back and look at his tape for Giovanni Gibson, that he's just really good route running, and he honestly reminds me quite a bit. I mean, I don't like to throw comparisons out there because sometimes you don't live up to it. I'm not saying he's as good or anything, but CeeDee Lamb. That's what I see a lot of in him. Good route running, get yourself open, and you know what? The hardest man to catch is the open man. And that's the hardest one. It's not the fastest guy. It's the guy that can get open. And that's what we saw from CeeDee Lamb. He's very shifty. Kind of like the CeeDee Lamb that we saw, and his progression and how he got bigger. And he wasn't the fastest dude on the field, but he didn't have to be. And so that's what I like a lot from him. Plus, he's got that strength, that size to be able to get out there. Gabe did a really good job on Gabe Eicher did a really good job on In Between the Weeds. And kind of talking about showing some of his where the quarterback starts to run, and what does he do? He turns around and tries to find a block and throws all 205 pounds into a big block, and he's really good at that. So that's what I love to see coming for a guy like that. And then Keontae Lewis, 6'2" again, but only 190, not that much lighter, but still 190. He reminds me a little bit more. It feels like we brought him in because we lost guys like maybe Andrel Anthony or I would probably compare it more to the loss of Jalil Farouk, where, not necessarily our biggest dudes, but they're shifty, they're speedy, and you can get them on the outside and match up. And so, of course, 6'2", that's not a bad height to have, especially if you got a little bit of hops to be able to go up for those 50-50 balls. So that's something, man. I'm excited because I'm looking back at some of these guys' tapes and seeing what they're capable of. Now, does that translate? That's something that that you really just have to rely on the coaching staff to be able to kind of coach them up and get them ready for it. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people they want to look at where they came from rather than looking back and what they did. And I think that's pretty important looking forward.
No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. And, going on though, we've got the biggest news so far. And this one, some people, I don't know why. I feel like there's some people that just love to be doom and gloom, and some people just love to be miserable, but they still don't want to look at this as great news. But we get John Mateer from Washington State to come over to fill in that quarterback slot. Of course, we lost Jackson Arnold. We even lost Brendan Zurbrugg. And so, losing two QBs, you got to add to the depth. Why not do it with a guy that already knows the system coming over with Ben Arbuckle and a dude that can put up some good numbers, very decisive, doesn't turn the ball over, and he's able to get into the end zone. He's got some wheels too. And the comparison that I've seen, I hate this comparison. Again, doing comparisons, I personally am offended by this comparison, but the more I watch side-by-side videos, I see a little bit of Baker Mayfield in him. I,
Look,
he's got that dog.
it's not crazy. Similar height, from Texas, likes to run the ball. The big difference is that Mateer is a legitimate dual threat quarterback,
Oh, yeah.
as in you do design runs and he's gone.
Yeah.
And Baker was a really good scrambler,
Yeah.
like really good scrambler. But that wasn't his game. Like you didn't do design runs on a regular basis with him running the ball. He would just go ahead and run it when he saw that there was an opportunity. So yeah, they yeah, it's a difference.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he's going to live up
And
to the hype that Baker left. Nothing like that. And not only that, but
I don't know.
some news that we got. Baker's actually the one that helped nudge him over the top. We had Bill Belichick stepping in and trying to get John Mateer over to North Carolina, Miami, obviously with the connections to Cam Ward, both of them coming from Washington State. He sat behind Cam Ward, had a good relationship with him in the same QB room as Cam Ward back at Washington State for 2 years. Not only that, but like if I'm a I don't know how old he is off the top of my head, 22-year-old kid. If I'm a 20-year-old kid and I'm offered to go down to Miami and get some money to go down there and chill out with the Miami girls, I don't know. I might be on my way. But Oklahoma has him stop there first, and they say, "We want you. We got your coach. We got two of your coaches. We got your QB coach and
I wanted
your
to.
offensive coordinator. So let's keep you here." And so I mean, I absolutely love it. And like I said, I do see the comparison with him and Baker and the way that they move. And like you said too, I do agree with you. I think he's more of a true dual threat, where Baker just made himself into a dual threat at times.
Yeah, Mateer is 100% a dual threat guy. I mean, he rushed for 800 something yards this past season. He
Yeah,
passed for 3,100 yards, 44 combined touchdowns with 15 on the run and 29 on the pass. So he's going to run the ball, which puts so much strain on defenses. Now, he's coming into the SEC, and people think, oh, well, he did that at Washington. No, don't get it twisted.
yeah,
He's going to be just as effective in the SEC as he was. You watch Jackson Arnold run for over 100 yards in some games, you're going to see the same thing out of John Mateer. You'll probably see more. That's the point. The big thing with John Mateer is that even though teams had to key in on Jackson Arnold to make sure he didn't run all over him, John Mateer's going to throw it on you. He's going to legitimately throw the ball. Like the ball's going to leave his hands and it's going to go to a wide receiver spot. Either in their hands, they'll either catch it, they won't. But the thing is, Mateer will throw the ball and somebody else will have the opportunity to catch it. That puts a lot of strain on the defense. If you had that from Jackson Arnold, the game would have been changed for him. You just need him to get rid of the ball and just throw it. Be okay stepping up in the pocket and just launching it, giving plays enough time to open up. But that's also, you got Ben Arbuckle, who architects an offense that's built to get guys open on a regular basis. We'll have probably Arbuckle for about as long as we're going to have John Mateer. I'm just hoping that we can keep him for longer, but you're probably going to get to maybe 3 years out of your OC because that's just kind of the name of the game. Teams are looking for coaches that are very innovative on offense and need to get points up there. They don't care as much about defense, but that's the good thing is that we got a defensive-minded coach who's focused on defense and they can make things happen. So, yeah, if there's anything, my expectation here is that Mateer is going to be on the move and he may not be Baker, Mayfield, but he'll be Baker Steep, and you'll be excited about the fact that he has that similar type of moxie to go out there and play. But it's funny you mentioned that. Toby Rowland had tweeted that out afterwards that Miami, North Carolina, and Bill Belichick was really
Yeah.
after John Mateer. That they even had Tom Brady call the man and have a
Yeah.
quick conversation with them. And so the Sooners kind of countered things like, we're going to bring Baker Mayfield in. He won the Heisman here. And, Baker probably told him, look, dude, go watch 2015 OU Tennessee. You tell me if you want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You want to be that guy? You
That
come to
was
Oklahoma.
yeah, that was hey everybody, welcome to the Baker Show because yeah, I mean that was
Yep.
definitely the opening. Like hey, we now understand who this guy really is, and then you just never saw him back off. And John Mateers, he doesn't quite have the same aura as Baker, and I don't think anybody ever will. But he's
No.
definitely got like I think you used the right word, moxie about him. He's kind of got that. He's a little bit of swag. It's a little bit of swagger about him. And he fits in pretty well. I mean, it's funny too. Like I saw the picture with him and Dion Burks out at dinner with Ben Arbuckle. It's like he fits in. And he's going to fit in with the team. And he's one of those guys that when you look at him, he's got such a baby face. Doesn't seem like he belongs in a college football locker room. But kind of like Baker, just fits right in with everybody. He's gonna swing right in with the crowd, and he's one of them. But I love to see that pickup, and I think it's going to be big news. What do you think is the biggest hope for Oklahoma going forward then with John Mateer coming in, with Michael Hawkins still around? He's a program guy, so I kind of see this going one of two ways. And the way that I would hope as a traditionalist is that Michael Hawkins, if he doesn't win out the starting spot, obviously I just want the best quarterback to play. I don't want John Mateer to play just because we got him out of the portal. But my assumption would be that John Mateer would be the guy to step in and be the starting quarterback next season. And Michael Hawkins can learn behind him and just sit back. He's still got 3 years left, which means after next year, then we'd have 2 more years of Michael Hawkins after having some kind of progression and some sort of, really trying to build him up and build him into something. But it is kind of worrisome in today's college football where you've got these transfer portals. You have to worry about NIL. And if kids aren't getting NIL because they're not on the field, they want to go somewhere where they can. So what do you think is the best case scenario for Oklahoma? Or what do you see happening there with John Mateer and Michael Hawkins sharing the same room?
Well, I mean, Michael Hawkins already said that he wants to be here and he wants to be quarterback
Yeah.
at Oklahoma, and he's open to competition. That's the only thing that matters is as long as he's given an actual opportunity. In my personal opinion, Michael Hawkins is going to stay on this team, and so that's perfect because now you have your lineage set up all the way down. So you have Mateer here next season. If he kills it, decides to bounce out, boom, you're good. Michael Hawkins is ready to step in. That gives Hawkins the opportunity to go ahead and redshirt this season and not have to be concerned about having to go in the game. If Mateer blows it out and decides to come back another year, then you may have some questions there if Hawkins is still willing to sit behind that 4 more year. But I think he is a program guy that'll be willing to do that because then the next season when Mateer is gone, you'll have Hawkins, you'll have Jet New, and you'll also have Jaden O'Neal at that point. Jaden O'Neal will be a true freshman. Gives him an opportunity to go ahead and redshirt. Michael Hawkins leads it for 2 seasons. And then at that point, you hopefully can keep that succession going down the line. And that could be a huge deal for Oklahoma to have quarterbacks in the wings going on, even if Jet New decides to take somebody's job. If he's good enough for it, you'll be able to have guys in succession, which is most important. To me personally, I would not want to have to live in the transfer portal getting quarterbacks. The only time I would really be considering heavily in the transfer portals if you have a situation that just happened where you're bringing in an offensive coordinator, he has a quarterback that played with him, and the quarterback was really good for him, and he decides that, yeah, we're going to go ahead and bring him along with us. Then you're good to go. But your hopes is that you can come in or you can elevate somebody internally because the system is built right to where you can elevate somebody, they can continue to run a similar system with some new wrinkles and creativities to where you can continuously promote from within. Because at some point, if you keep showing up with offenses, people will take your people. They're either going to the college ranks or to the NFL. That is the name of the game. People are looking for the young, innovative next guy that they can have for the next 20 years. So gotta look out for that. That's going to happen. So if we do it right, we'll probably end up losing Ben Arbuckle in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on top of that, you talk about Ben Arbuckle. I mean, the way that we had it structured is kind of similar to what I think we're trying to do right now. Where we
Yeah.
had Jeff Levy come in and we had Dylan Gabriel come in out of the portal, brought them both in to try to hope that we can move on with Jackson Arnold going forward. That seemed to all be falling into place, and then Jeff Levy leaves. The system kind of changes quite a bit, and now you've got kind of a faster paced offense that requires a lot more movement with your top 5, 6 wide receivers out and an banged up offensive line. Now we're right back into this situation. So I agree with you. I don't want to live in the transfer portal at all when it comes to quarterback. You want a quarterback that's going to work for this system, and you want that quarterback to always be learning and moving up, and that's definitely the way to do it. But going forward, what are some positions or even specific players that you're looking at in the transfer portal that you're thinking we have a good shot and I really want this guy?
Honestly, I think we're probably going to need to get one more edge and one big guy in the defensive line, just because we need some additional experience to go to all the young players that we're about to play a lot. Ethan O'Connor, also at corner from Washington State, is one that I really would like us to get our hands on. We could use an additional veteran corner to go to all the young guys. You'll have Eli Bowen out there, but you need to have yourself a big corner to go on the side, and Ethan's one of those. I think he's like 6'2". 190, nice size corner that can play on the outside. You're going to need some bigger body corners for the SEC, but you got a lot of good young players coming in. So you're going to have some dudes that got some dog in them that's ready to play. But I would think Ethan O'Connor is one. He just finished up his visit to Miami, if I'm correct. And so he's floating around, and he's young too. So you could bring him in. I'm sorry, about 6'1", 170. So you got him. Him with Eli Bowen would be a lot of fun, and he played very well for Washington State last
Oh
season.
yeah,
And honestly, looking at some of the Washington State offensive linemen, potentially we talked about that a little bit earlier, but go see if there's one of them you may want.
yeah.
But at the same time, I think they also had David Gusta, defensive lineman, that just hit the portal, and he's one. A lot of people are like, "Yeah, I would love to have him because he's really good at stuff in the middle." That's good to have as an emergency behind a David Stone. I wanted TJ Lindsey. I'm waiting to see if he ever, ends up anywhere. I thought that he'd be a great pickup because he was teammates with Jaden Jackson and David Stone. He transferred out of Auburn. He'd be a fantastic player to pick up. So we just got to, wait and see. But I think that edge and defensive line and a corner will be really good. And that should probably hold us off until next year.
CJ, that's why you and I get along so well because here we are worried about the offense. The offense fell apart and was terrible this past season. We had so many guys leave the offense, and your first reaction was, I want to fill in a couple of these pieces on defense, keep that defense rolling. And that's why you and I get along, man. I mean,
Hey,
I know
I
one guy.
trust what Ben Arbuckle's going to do. That's the reason why you brought him in here. You brought him in
Yeah,
because you trust that he can make it happen. Why should I think anything else? So, yeah, David Gusta or TJ Lindsey, I would love to see either one of them pull up. That would be nice. So, see what
what do you
happens.
think about Logan George? He's out of Idaho or Idaho State, right? Something like that. And
Yeah, Idaho. Yeah, he's an
yeah,
edge, and he would be nice to have. We're losing, what, three edges? You
yeah, because
lose,
I think
you're
Caden Woolard.
losing Caden Woolard, Trace Ford,
Mhm.
as well as oh, who else is leaving out?
I know that there's speculation with R. Mason Thomas. Not really sure if he's going to move on or not, but I haven't
Yeah, I
heard
don't
any.
think he leaves. It feels more and more like he's closer to staying, but
Yeah,
we'll know probably after the bowl game
I
for
mean,
him.
I see with him too. I feel like he could have the jump that we saw with Danny Stutzman. Like
Yeah.
I could see like coming from you had a really good season where everyone knows your name now. Now you go out there and do something, which that's exactly what happened with Danny Stutzman. Like, holy cow, do you guys see this guy? Oh, he's coming back for another
Hmm.
year. Holy cow, he just did even better this year. All right, wow, like that's what I see when I see
Hmm.
with R. Mason Thomas. I see like almost the same story.
Yeah,
There's
and that's who it is. It's Ethan Downs is the other one. I always keep forgetting. Ethan Downs is
oh
gone.
yeah, I forgot
He's a
about.
senior. He's played all 4
Mhm.
years. Caden Woolard's got his extra year done, so he's complete. And then you have Trace Ford. So that's your three players that are gone.
Yeah.
R. Mason, if he returns, it's awesome. If not, it's good to add an additional. That's why that edge
Oh yeah.
from Idaho will be good because you're gonna need some extra bodies to go with the young guys. The good thing is the young guys are good. I mean, from Danny Okoye and Taylor Wine, to PJ Adebaware. You'll probably see some run on the edge from Nigel Smith, Wyatt Gilmore. You've got a lot of really good dudes in that room that you could play with, but you also need some additional bodies. With Dejon Terry gone and the potential
Mhm.
for Dominic to be gone, I think Dominic returns too, but there's potential that Dejon Terry leaves. If Dejon Terry leaves, then at that point you're going to need Dejon Terry is gone. If Dominic leaves with him, you're going to need a couple of more big bodies to go with Jaden Jackson and David Stone. So, especially losing Champ Sanders to the portal, to me, going to get another defensive tackle will be good. Got to have another big guy in the middle, especially for the SEC.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I know as far as the wide receiver room, I know there's still Isaiah Sategna, which is on the list. You know, guys that we're really trying to get from Arkansas. He's another short but speedy guy. And I would love to add to the speed. I love speedy guys and be able to, I feel like we lost Jaleel Farouk and Andrel Anthony, and so why not try to replace both of them? You know, kind of those smaller but speedy guys. And then you also have Jaron Bradley from Boston College, who I would love. He's 6'5", 222 pounds. I like that sizable wide receiver a lot. I like that guy that can go up for any kind of jump ball. Kind of reminds me of maybe of almost like maybe a Keon Coleman kind of out of Florida State. The way he was able to, basically just jump over the top of you and grab that ball from you anytime he wanted to.
Yeah.
So I would love to be able to see guys like that. As far as the wide receivers go, I think that's the only room that I'm really worried about on offense, because I think everything else we're really filling in really well, and so it's looking good. And I think that everything started to go just about as planned so far on the offensive side of the ball in the transfer portal so far. And something I know I heard you and John talk about it on Locked On, I've mentioned it several times, is that we have to be patient, because what people are forgetting is that there's a whole nother window that's going to open up. And that's when you see some of these guys that are currently in the playoffs or big time bowl games, they're not gonna opt into it. They're not gonna opt out of their bowl game just to
No.
hop in the transfer portal right now. They're gonna wait. And so that's another thing that we need to wait for, because those are when you start to see some of these big time names. And so obviously just kind of staying patient.
Yeah, it's got to be patient, man. It takes time. You don't know what other players are going to end up in the portal. There's going to be more. So
Yeah.
there's rumbles about certain players hitting the portal. So I bet you this staff is just going to monitor who ends up in the portal, who could potentially end up in the portal. Remember, these agents are talking like crazy. Now, a lot of it's not even tampering. It's just the agents are saying, yeah, we're thinking
Agents.
I got this guy and this guy thinking about hitting the portal. We're trying to evaluate if there's a market for them. And since that happened, guess what? There's a guarantee that they're gonna, when they hit the portal, there's gonna be services that people are gonna be looking for. So to me, it's right now we're what? It's the ninth is when the portal happened. We are 10 days in. We've got 10 days left. We're only halfway there, folks. Once this past weekend finishes, and once the bowl games are done, there's a 5 or 7 day window for players to hit the portal right after their game concludes, and you're going to see another mass exodus. So if you want players from really good teams, you got to wait for the playoff teams to conclude and get done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be a fun one. I know it's frustrating in the era of the portal, especially for us, those of us who are kind of traditionalist in the world of college football. But it's also quite a bit of fun to kind of track everybody, see where everybody's going.
Yeah.
You get your hopes up for certain players, and it goes down. But we'll kind of keep an eye on it. But Jay, I appreciate you jumping on. Let my listeners know where they can find your stuff.
Absolutely. You can find me on Unfair Sports here on YouTube, as well as on Locked On Sooners. We drop a daily show. Check me out there, and as well as follow me on X at Unfair Sports. I appreciate it, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for hopping on, man. Hey Sooner fans, did you enjoy this video? Well, go ahead and hit that like button, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. What are you doing if you've made it this far and haven't already? You should be able to find that subscribe button over here. And then if you want to see full episodes, we've got those up here, and clips right down here. So go check that out. But we thank you all so much for all the love, all the support. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.